Then if you have children now, you are not yet married, and if you are invited to apply for permanent residency, then you can inform IRCC that you are now married. Remember, before you enter the pool, you said you were single. So if you are telling IRCC after you got an invitation that you are now married, make sure your marital date, the date of your marriage certificate, should be corresponding. Remember, I said you shouldn't fake anything. Hey guys, welcome back to our channel, and thank you so much for joining today. If you are new here, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Today's video, I want to talk about a pathway that you can use to immigrate to Canada as a permanent resident. Let me put it this way. Now, this pathway I'm going to be talking about is what we call the express entry. With the express entry, you can immigrate to Canada as a permanent resident. Permanent resident means here that you are not going as a student, you are not going as a visitor. All right, as soon as you have this visa that says you are going to Canada, it means you are a permanent resident, and after that you may just be looking at the citizenship, right? That is excellent. So let's talk about this pathway. Express entry is a common phenomenon. A lot of people don't know about this. It has its own rules. Please, I will encourage you to stay till the end of this video so you understand there are some techniques I'm going to be giving you here. Now, express entry is a point-based system where the government of Canada picks people depending on their points and put them in a particular pool and tell them, invite them. That's the government of Canada invites people, then invites them to apply, give them invitations to apply for permanent residency. Remember, there is a registration fee when you are applying for this permanent residency. I think it's 1,300 Canadian dollars, all right, when you are picked. But first, before you are to be selected, there are certain things you need to do, and when you do those things, you now enter the pool, all right, the pool of candidates, all right, of applicants. What you basically need to understand first of all about express entry is that, like I said, it's a category-based selection. They select according to the category and the education, your work experience, and your marital status, and of course your education, your marital status, your work experience. All these things count, and at the end of the day, you have to know what points do you have in order to go into the pool or to create an express entry profile. Then you enter the pool. First, you need your level of education. Let me start with the requirements that you need, the things that you need to understand. If you have the higher your level of education, the higher your points, all right? The higher the number of years of work experience, the more the number of years, the more your points. If you are married, it doesn't really play a part in your scores that much. If you have a family member in Canada, it also increases your point. If you are selected for the PNP, the Provincial Nomination Program, it also increases your point, but that is not really something like let me say a criteria. You must not do it if your points are good. Okay, now if you have a partner, if you are married, because I have some people asking me these questions a couple of times. If you are married and you see that, let's assume that you have a bachelor's degree and your spouse, if you are already married, your spouse let's say does not have a degree. Let me say their spouse have just a high school qualification. If you indicate that you are married in the express entry pool, it's going to reduce your points. There is something called the CRS calculator. Follow that CRS calculator and calculate your points to see if you meet the requirements. Now, what happens if you enter the pool alone, and when you are invited to apply and you are pregnant and you are married? Then in this case, you have to inform IRCC and let them understand that you are now married. And remember, it must be legal marriage. Don't do this process if you are thinking of faking documents. This is just an advice I'm giving to you. And before you start this process, remember you need at least 13,000 Canadian dollars or more, all right? Because I think as a single applicant, you need 13,300 or something. I haven't checked, but it should be close to like 13,000. In case you are invited to apply, this is the money that needs to be on your bank statement. If you are applying for just you and your husband, if you say you are married and you are invited to apply, 2 people, you have to show at least, is it 17, I'm not sure, yeah, around 17,000 Canadian dollars If you are 3 people, you need to show at least 21,000 Canadian dollars. That's from at least 6 million CFA francs Cameroon money upwards. So before you go, if you start thinking of express entry, please make sure you have that money in your bank account. It should be in your bank account to save you a lot of stress. Remember, I said work experience will increase your chance, but the minimum work experience you need to have is 1 year. I want to talk about this before I go to the new category based selection. This is the work experience you need. 3 years is enough. Bachelor's degree, master's degree is good, all right, and PhD excellent, because the higher your qualification, the better. Now, these are the things you need to know. I already talked about your age. Yeah, the higher your age, the lesser your points. All right. So the minimum, in fact, you should be between 0 to 30 years. All right, 18 to 30 years. Let me put it this way. If you already crossed 30 years, let's say 31 years, your points begins to drop. If you are 32 years, your points begins to drop. As you go up, your points begins to drop. Now you need to do very well in the other sections to increase your points. I was checking the website few days back, and I noticed that there were draws that were done, because the Canadian officials or the Canadian government is going to do draws. I think most times they do draws 2 times a month. For this month of June, a draw was done on the 8th of June. And when I was checking, I noticed that the highest point that was selected, I think it was 489, or is it 486? Please check again. Now, this is my point. I'm taking time to explain all of these things because, like I said, the higher your points, the higher your chances for you to get an invitation to apply for permanent residency. This particular pilot program, or this particular program, would help you a lot. That's if you go to Canada as a permanent resident, there are a lot of advantages. You don't worry of swapping your visas. You don't worry if you decide to go to school. That's your problem. If you like, you go to school. If you decide to work for one employer, that's your problem. But as a permanent resident, you can work for whosoever you want. You have the chance to negotiate salaries, all right? You don't just take anything. Like if you're a student, you can just take maybe a particular salary because you need money for upkeep. If you are on a visitor's visa, maybe you just need a particular job to take, all right? Because you are looking for possibilities to swap your visa. Like I always explain, you have been watching my videos, you know what I'm talking about. But if you are a permanent resident in Canada, you have the right to apply to many jobs and select which one you like to go in for depending on salary. You have the voice to negotiate, right? Permanent resident, you are just 1 foot into citizenship. Come on. But again, this is not a process for people who are in a haste. If you are in a haste, don't take this process because it takes a lot of time. When you go into the pool, it's not easy. If your points are very high, let's say, but right now, I want to tell you that if you are going into the pool, use the CRS calculator to calculate your points. And before you go into the pool, make sure your points are at least 480. Do not you go into the pool with points lesser than 480. IELTS is very, very important here, guys. Very important. All right. It's IELTS general, not IELTS academic. IELTS general alone. Make sure you score very high points, and none of the sections for IELTS, the listening, the speaking, the reading, and the writing, should be below 7. If you have it below 7, go again and write the IELTS. This is the advice I'm giving you. Okay, if you need a one-on-one consultation with me, please book from the video description box. Thank you so much. And like I said, the more your age, the more your points will reduce. Go to the calculator, use the CRS calculator to calculate your points. Answer those questions. They will ask you if you're married and stuff, your work experience, how many years. And remember, there is something called a NOC, ONC code. All right, ONC code is the code that relates to that particular job field. All right, you have been working. For example, if you have been a finance manager, then you go into that NOC area and search for your own particular job. You will see something that relates to your job, or maybe your particular job type. All right. Then you copy the NOC code because you will need it when you are creating the profile. I hope you understand. So this is how express entry works. Then after you finish with that, you are going to check that then to know your score. Then after that, you do evaluation of your transcripts, all right, Remember, if you have a bachelor's, a master's, and PhD, evaluate your PhD transcript, right? You evaluate your highest certificate, because your highest certificate gives you more points. I hope you understand. So when you are putting your stuff on the CRS gap to calculate to see how your points are before you think if you are going into the pool or not, then put in your highest degree. For me, my highest is master's as of now. All right, in case I wanted to be doing things like that, I will put my master's and calculate. So I'm just telling you so you understand. Then if you have children now, you are not yet married, and if you are invited to apply for permanent residency, then you can inform IRCC that you are now married. Remember, before you enter the pool, you said you were single. So if you are telling IRCC after you got an invitation that you are now married, make sure your marital date, the date of your marriage certificate, should be corresponding. Remember, I said you shouldn't fake anything here. All right, because if you do, they are going to reject you. This is a golden opportunity. Don't spend money writing the IELTS exam, evaluating your transcript. At the end of the day, you get something and you blunt it out. A lot of people have been dropped after giving an invitation because of negligence. Again, remember the job category. Let's say if you are a marketer, and after doing marketing for 2 years, or maybe working as a marketer for 2 years, you decided to go and be maybe a counselor for 1 year. That's, you have 3 years work experience. But now, which one has at least 70%? The one that has at least 70% is the marketer, the one that relates to marketing. So you have to go to the NOC section and check the NOC code that rhymes to marketing. Then that should be the code you are using. I believe this is enough to help you. Then again, after you've checked all this, let's assume that you check all of this and your points, maybe your points are like maybe 413, or let's say 470. Now, remember I said you have to go back and check the points that were selected before. For as of June 8th, the highest score that was selected to enter the pool was I think 486 or 489. I will check again, guys. Then you have to check. When you see the highest score, you now know that you need to work hard. So far, I've monitored the selection base from April, May to this June, and I've noticed that they have not selected a score. They haven't chosen scores, the minimum score of they have not chosen people with scores of 480. Guys, so this is what you need to do. You need to look for all means to increase your points. Remember, the French language is there and the English is there. The English, you take the IELTS exam, and the French, you take the TEF Canada. TEF Canada, you can write, is a French exam you can write to increase, because the more languages, the better your points increases, all right, when you go into the pool. I hope you understand me. Now, you can take the exam if you have the money, but remember, IELTS is 170, I don't know if it's 173,000 CFA francs Cameroon money. You check with respect to your currency. Then before you go for the IELTS general, make sure you prepare very well, because if you score anything below 7, all the sections, the listening, the reading, the speaking, and the writing shouldn't be below 7. The higher your score, the greater. If you manage to score 8888, then that is excellent score to skyrocket. The higher your IELTS score, the higher your points will go up. I'm just telling you facts, right? If you manage to score something like maybe in the listening you have 8.5, reading you have 7, then speaking you have 7.5, and writing you have 6.5, then make sure you change that writing from 6.5 to 7 or above. And if you have 7 and above, your score may just come to 475. If you have a score like this, it's still good, but please increase it, because as it stands right now, we don't know if people, because if you have a score of 7.5 and they are doing a selection, they say the minimum score they are selecting is maybe 480, then you will never be selected. So look for all means to go above the 480 mark, all right? And if you get a score, let's assume that your score for IELTS is 8.5, then reading 8, then speaking 7.5, then writing 7.5, then you would go above 487 in case you are a single applicant. So these are some of the things you need to consider in this. Then after that, before you write the IELTS, make sure you evaluate your transcript. Your transcript, you are doing it with words, it depends on you. With words, you create a profile, enter the details, enter your highest thing, enter the name of your school. Then remember, you are doing the payment on words. I think it should be $250 or something. You have to pay first, then get a quote. Then you now take the quote to your university to send your transcript. All instructions will be there on words evaluation. There are other agencies you can use, but if I'm using something, if I'm doing it, I have to use the words evaluation. Then after that, you now do the evaluation. After your evaluation is ready, then your IELTS score is ready. You can now create a profile and enter into the pool and pray. Hopefully you are selected. If you are selected, remember you said you have 3 years working experience. You need to prove that. The money you need to prove with bank statement, all those things. If you make an error after being selected, they will drop you and you may have issues. Don't make errors, guys. Read more on IRCC. Then remember, there is a category-based selection now, which I talk about as STEM, those that speak French, those that have been working in French areas, those that are into agriculture, those that are into transport. That's the new section. The minister of the Canadian official says they are going to select some people based on that. So if you have a particular experience in that field, but again, just make sure you put these things into consideration: work experience and IELTS, and just go into the pool and wait. All right, and hopefully if your scores are 480 and above, you may just get an invitation before you know. So this is how it is. Some people will be selected based on the categories I just told you about. I have a video about that, but it doesn't change the fact that if you don't belong to those categories, you can't be selected. Remember, express entry is a point base. The higher your points, the better chance you get selected. All right, so please make sure you put all of this into consideration. I believe this has helped you a lot, or this is going to help a lot. And like I said, some people will be selected based on the categories, while others will be selected based on their points as it stands right now. So make sure you sit in for your IELTS, then you enter the pool, do your evaluation, you enter the pool, and hopefully you will be selected. And before you know, you're a permanent resident in Canada and you are good to go. Till we meet again in another one. Peace.